Welcome to the Kamila Gornia Show. This is the Heart Behind Hustle episode number 1. And today we are jamming with business coach Emily Utter about what it takes to live your brand and create freedom with your business structure that allows you to travel, plus specific advice on creating a freedom-based lifestyle that actually works for you and your business. Emily Utter is a business coach for adventurous entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers who want to build location-independent businesses and work from anywhere in the world. Emily works with coaches, healers, and consultants to stop overgiving, get out of the hustle, and start growing sustainable, profitable income that supports a healthy and happy, freedom-filled lifestyle. So I'm very excited for this interview. Let's just go ahead and dive right in. All right. Hey, everyone. And I am super excited to introduce to you Emily Utter. Hey, Emily.
Hey, Kamila.
I'm super excited that you're here. So our listeners already know a little bit about you. You are a business coach and you work with adventurous entrepreneurs. And to kind of kick this off, I wanted to ask you just like, what would you say you're the most known for? Because I know you do the business coaching side and you work with very specific people, but you also like go to Bali and like do all these amazing things. So what would you say is like the thing that you are most known for?
Yeah, I think I'm known for having a business that you can really run from anywhere in the world and not giving up the lifestyle, like not creating a business where you end up hustling 24/7 and not actually enjoying your life. So I go to Burning Man, I go to Bali every year. I usually go to Thailand every year, Tulum, wherever else I feel like going. So I think that's what I'm known for. And I think I'm known for kind of maybe a spicy personality, maybe.
Mm-hmm. You're super fun. And, you and I have known each other for a little while. So I think what you've done really well is creating a brand that isn't even like so rooted in business, but it is at the same time. So like the Burning Man and the Bali and like all that stuff. And like you did a live recently about I think it was about how you, it's like about jet lag, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That was so cool. But at the same time, I'm sure even though it's not like super related to business, I'm sure it's still bringing in like tons of amazing raving fans for you just because you're being fully yourself. So can you share a little bit about like how has the journey been for you when it comes to developing into that like fully developed person, entrepreneur and creative that you are?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kamila. And yeah, it's interesting. And the other thing I want to say to everyone is not only did I just do this post on jet lag, but I also was like disgusting. Like I had just done a workout. I had just flown many, many hours and I hadn't showered since Taipei, which had probably been 20 hours previous to me at least doing the video. And so I know that a lot of people say that you have to present yourself really, really well online and first impressions. And I'm totally cool with all of that. And I feel like for me, one of the things that I'm always preaching to my clients, and I have to really live it myself, is being imperfect, because I think that too many of us are working way too hard to have everything be perfect. So I'll say that, one of my most popular Facebook lives ever was actually me in a bathrobe, like no joke, with a towel on my head, because someone had canceled a call with me and I was like really jazzed up about sales. I'm always jazzed up about sales, but I was like really in the moment and I just did it and it was so fun. And it was one of my most popular lives ever. So in terms of like really living the brand, I have to say, Kamila, that one of the things that has become increasingly important to me, and I'm actually going to be creating a whole new course on this, is the power of self-expression. Because I realized that in the early days of my company, I felt like it had to look a certain way. And by the way, the train's going by, so I hope this isn't too loud, but that's what you get for Ocean View Home in San Diego. You're also right by the train. So, when I first started coaching, I felt like I had to be a certain way. So I thought I had to be this like really calm meditator who wore crystals or
right, because you work with healers.
Yeah, I work with healers. And I don't know, I guess I was almost denying these parts of myself. So you've seen me speak before, I think. And, I definitely drop F-bombs and I do really silly stuff and I'm self-deprecating. And, when I kind of bring the travel stuff into the conversation, it's funny because in the beginning, and my business is almost exactly 4 years old right now. So in the beginning, I felt like I had to do it a certain way. And I actually felt guilty when I would want to travel because I'd have to do my calls at different times. I remember my first trip to Bali feeling just this guilt around the fact that you know, my clients might have to meet me at a later hour than usual. Nothing super unreasonable, but like, let's say 6 or 8 p.m. instead of 2 p.m. because that would be 2 in the morning my time. So just little things like that. I was so afraid. And I realized that I needed to just freaking own who I am, because the problem with being somebody else is that we have to remember who that person is that we've been pretending to be, to try to people please. And it just wasn't working. And so as I've given myself permission to be more seen and just build this into my brand, it's crazy. Like, I just came back from a month in Bali, and my clients were celebrating that I was there, and they were really seeing it as a possibility for themselves. And, you know, they weren't upset that I wasn't in the coaching group at the times they were used to. And I just realized that's because I am owning it. So I'm owning it from this place of confidence and security, rather than like, oh, I hope this is okay. Because when we're doubting the way that we show up, whether we communicate it or not, people feel it because they feel the energy around that. And so, you know, over the past few years, I've really had to give myself permission to own that I go to Burning Man, and like clients have seen me there on the playa with like very little clothing on. And, you know, it's like, and I saw my own life coach at Burning Man last year, and it was like, cool, like we're pretty much almost naked and you're my coach. And like, what's this new way of being that we can be a part of, where it doesn't have to be a certain way, and where there's nothing unprofessional about me hanging out with my life coach, you know, at Burning Man. And so it's just something that I've been playing with. And I feel like there's a lot more that's going to be coming through me on this topic, and even just the way that I show up and some of the courses that I want to create around this. But I feel like the self-expression piece is so huge. And I see that so much in you, Kamila. Like, I love watching your Facebook lives because you're just so real. Like, even the one where you had the bird come in your apartment and you're just being silly. You know what I mean? And it's great because I think we just need to be doing more of that. And I so appreciate that about you, because I never see you holding back. And I think it's refreshing. And I think there's so much BS in the coaching industry right now, and so many people just putting crap out there. And I think people are really hungry for authenticity. So it doesn't have to look like running around naked at Burning Man, right? Like, it's going to look different for everybody, but I just feel like it's so essential. And, you know, people tell me all the time, wow, you really live your brand, but it's effortless. It's not like I go out and furnish my apartment trying to be on brand. You know, it's like, like I actually created something that is of my essence, that is natural to me. And I don't have to put the effort in to be on brand, because what I'm really doing is just being authentic and
being you.
Yeah. And just pushing my own edges around that of, well, what am I willing to let people see? So am I willing to let people see me sweaty after a workout with no makeup? And am I willing, you know, I've cried on Facebook Lives before. Like, am I willing to let people see that? Because I don't want to work so hard to be this perfect whatever thing that I think people want from me. Like, that just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. And I think it's really just giving permission to yourself to be truly yourself, and knowing that you're going to attract the people that need to be attracted to you, right? And everyone else can just go, you know, follow somebody else that is you. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's so many people in the world that, you know, we don't want to necessarily attract everybody.
No.
And I love that you mentioned the bird video. There's so many people that mention the bird video to me.
Oh, I love it.
It's so funny because people have been like, oh my gosh, like, it's so hilarious. You're so funny and all this stuff. So even though it had nothing to do with my business, obviously, because a freaking bird flew into my bedroom, nothing to do with business, it's just a different side of ourselves. So when you go to Burning Man, it's like, well, look, this says something about you, but it's not necessarily directly correlated with business. So I think that's really what freedom is too.
Yeah.
It's being able to express yourself fully and not worry about, is this brand relevant, or, you know, how am I going to tie into my marketing strategy now? It's like just being yourself, and then everything else kind of follows. So I think that's really amazing. So something that I want to kind of address really quickly is, you mentioned that when you're moving and you're living in Bali for a month, let's say, and then you're shifting calls and things like that. So do you mind talking a little bit, to switch gears just a little bit, and then we'll come back to this, in terms of your business? So how would you say is your business structure? Do you work with like one-on-one clients? What's kind of the structure?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So this year I'm doing it a little bit differently. So right now I don't really have one-on-one clients. So I have clients who invest at a VIP level with me. So they do have some access to me one-on-one, but it's not like I'm getting on the phone with them twice a month like I have in the past. So I'm open to working with one-on-one clients, but I'm kind of shifting the type of person that I work with one-on-one to somebody who's already at six figures, who I can really help scale up to like 3 to 500,000 revenue, for example. So right now I'm not working with anyone like that. So what I'm doing right now is I have two group programs. So my main program is my Adventurous Entrepreneur Mastermind, and that really supports newer coaches and healers. Generally, my clients have done a little bit in their business before they work with me. That's not always true. But that really helps them build out the foundation of like the basics that you really need to get going and start making money. So that's the Adventurous Entrepreneur Mastermind. And then I have a second level, which is mostly graduates of that program, although I do have a couple people who have come into that. So you have to be qualified by already knowing some business stuff, already knowing sales. And that program's called the Freedom Tribe. And I love the name of it. I love that we're talking about freedom because I'm so obsessed. So right now I have, those two group programs. There's some other stuff I'm starting to put together. I'm going to start offering VIP days where people can work with me for like a day and like really go deep, just one-on-one. So that's happening. There's some new things that are brewing that are going to be coming out in the next, I would say 6 months or so, some faster than that. And one of the things you didn't directly ask, but you were kind of getting at was like running this company while I'm in Bali. I don't know if you're interested in hearing a little bit about that, but I'm happy to share that too, if that's helpful for people about how because, a lot of what I've created in my business is very intentional around my lifestyle. So that's really the tack that I take on business. So when I do business planning with my clients, we actually start first with what are your non-negotiable personal things that you want to do, like your trip to Italy. Or I have a client who's been traveling all over the place. She's right now, I think in Kyoto. She was just in London. She was in Costa Rica. Like she's actually traveling more than me. And I'm like, dang, I got to catch up. So if you think that would be valuable for your audience, I'd love to share.
Let's do that.
Okay, cool. So I go to Southeast Asia usually twice a year. So typically Bali and Thailand every year. And what I did actually when I was choosing the time to do my mastermind call was I actually chose a time that would work in Southeast Asia, since I tend to spend about 2.5 months a year over there. So that I wouldn't have to be doing calls at like 1 a.m. the time, in Southeast Asia. So that's one thing I want to say off the bat. If you know you're going to be traveling, to a particular place regularly, or, at least for a big chunk of time, you might want to consider something like that. And I would say too, that like waking up at 5 a.m. is a lot easier than having to do a call at like 2 or 3 in the morning. There's just something about it that for me was really challenging. So, that works really, really well with the mastermind. I would say I haven't mastered that with Freedom Tribe, because while I was in Bali, those calls were at 2 a.m. because I hadn't really planned around that. I didn't really think about it. So that was a challenge. So one thing to note though, is for my group programs, we do calls twice a month. So even if I'm traveling for 4 or 5 weeks, I might still only have 2 calls where I need to be at, in the group at a particular time. So what I did for Freedom Tribe is I did run 1 call, but then I also used my team. So I have support coaches. So my support coach, Amy, actually ran one of the calls as well. And we prepped for it ahead of time. So I knew what most of the content was she was going to deliver. So it's a great way to actually be able to scale. And, I know everybody wants to not have to be involved in every moment in their business. And so that's something that I've done too, is I've built out a coaching support team. So nobody in my group programs coaches with me one-on-one unless they invest at that higher VIP level. So that's how I've done that. And then, like I shared that I have just the 2 calls a month for each of those groups. And that would be the same for a private client too, if I were working with anyone at that level. That way I know, and the reason I go to Bali every May is because May has 5 weeks. So I always have 2 weeks off in a row where I'm not responsible for any calls. And then I have, the off week in between the 2 calls anyway. So there's very little time that I have to be somewhere at a specific time, which is great in a country with not very good Wi-Fi.
Is it not good? I've never been, so I have no
idea.
Well,
it depends where you are, but it's kind of notoriously not great. There's awesome co-working spaces because there's a huge community of digital nomads living there.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say like in my hotel, for example, it was not great. But again, I use my team. So they'd be in the back end of our conference call system, you know, taking people's raised hands and calls. So I would be, you know, able to be there on audio, but I couldn't see any of the controls, but that's what I use my team for.
How big is your team?
So I have 2 support coaches right now. Excuse me. That'll probably be growing as I start building out these new programs. But it works really great with 2.
Yeah, because I feel like, okay, so do you have like virtual assistants and like designers and stuff like that? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, I have a designer who's not on my team, but she'll, you know, if I need little things here and there,
Like project based. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't normally, but we're friends, and she was a client for 2 years. She did my website, so she's just awesome at, you know, being willing to do stuff. And then I do have what I would consider to be more of a technical assistant who does, you know, my stuff in Infusionsoft and lead pages and funnels and stuff that's a little bit more complicated. I also have a Facebook ads team, you know, contractors. I'm hiring a new executive assistant. So
me too.
Yay. Yeah. And then I'll probably be hiring a local, if they don't end up being the same person, the executive and a personal assistant. I may find someone who kind of blends the 2 here locally. But yeah, team is a focus now that I'm back. I didn't really want to do interviews from Bali. I've been there, done that, and it was just not fun. So I decided to just put it on hold while I was gone. I hardly worked while I was gone, honestly.
That's amazing, right? Like,
yeah.
So cool being able to do that.
My income didn't change.
Right.
Like that's the beauty of building out these group programs because everyone's in a year-long agreement with me. So my income is so consistent that I don't, you know, I didn't have to do any work while I was gone. I showed up obviously for the calls and in the Facebook groups, but you know, that looks like me sitting in a coffee shop with a coffee, looking at the rice fields and answering questions on my phone. For my clients. Like it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So when it comes to, I'm sure a lot of people are having some like interesting thoughts because I definitely teach a lot about the group program kind of structure as well. And I think a lot of questions that people might have is that support coach idea. So was that your first hire, would you say, or was that like a priority for you, or did you run programs in the beginning just by yourself, or like how did you approach that so that you're able to grow and then scale from there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my first hire ever was actually a VA. Tiffany, who I love, she's awesome. She's no longer with me, but we're friends and she's freaking awesome. So she was with me for my first couple years in my business. So she was the very first hire, which was so scary and like, and then I did have support coaches in my very first group program. You don't necessarily need it. It just depends what your goals are. You know, and it also depends on the size of the group. So if your first group program is pretty small and you know, you want to do the one-on-one coaching yourself, or maybe you don't even include one-on-one coaching in your program, you probably don't need support coaches. But for me, it was more based on my bigger vision, which is, you know, it is being able to go travel and do cool stuff and have a great lifestyle and not have everything be dependent on me. So I would say it depends on someone's vision. You know, you got to think about the fact that you're also going to be investing to have these people. So, you know, if you're just starting out and you want to run your first group and not have a support coach, I think that's great. And then the next time you run the program, you know, what I've usually done is hired kick-ass clients to then come coach in the next group. So, or I've hired peers. So Amy, who I know you know, is a support coach for me, and she was a peer of mine. So like, you know, it just kind of depends. I don't have a straight answer for anyone, but you definitely don't need it. And don't let that be the reason you don't launch something, because I think it's so easy to say like, well, you know, I have to do this before I can do that. And I call that the entrepreneurial trap. It's like, let's be honest, none of us know what the hell we're doing anyway. So just like take action and not feel like it has to be perfect, because it's not going to be anyway.
Right. So how big do you like your groups to be typically?
I've done everywhere from 25 to about 50. I'm open to doing bigger. I personally don't see myself, you know, I know a lot of programs out there really scale, and it's a great way to scale, but they scale to like 1 to 200 people or even more. And this could change, but I really like to know my clients and I really like to know their businesses. And I think what's so important about getting to know your clients too in business coaching is like, I can call them out on their stuff because I know them. I know their personality. I learn their patterns. My coaching team and I meet every week, and we actually met today before I jumped on with you. And, we talk about individuals and what patterns they're showing up with, because we really do see, their resistance and stuff like that. And I think if I had a huge group, sure, I would know, some people would rise to the top and I would get to know them and their stuff. But for me, I just am not right now interested in serving a huge group that way. Maybe for like a 6-week program, for example, my sales program, I would love to get 200 people in there. That would kick ass. But for the masterminds, for my group programs, I'd rather cap. I would probably cap at 100 because I think at that level I could actually know them. But I've really enjoyed the groups I've had up to about 50 people.
I love that. So I love that you mentioned sales, because you're like a total sales rock star. I feel like
sales.
And
Yeah.
it's so funny because I remember one time, I think we were supposed to do something social, and they were like, actually, I'm just gonna like spend all day just on sales calls. I'm like, okay, you are the sales queen. So for people that are listening, and we probably, most of our people that are listening are probably seasoned entrepreneurs, I would say. So done the sales thing, but
yeah,
for somebody that isn't naturally sales savvy, I think that like spending a full day on sales calls can sound a little bit like, holy crap. So have you always been like, how did you develop your sales skills? Is it been like always natural or?
No.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
No. So it's funny, if you think about sales as enrollment of just being persuasive or helping somebody see the value of something, I've definitely been that. So, in the group of friends, I'll be the one who's like, no, we really should go to this restaurant for this reason. Or, I remember my girlfriends and I did a trip to Tulum, like before Tulum was even cool, like probably almost 15 years ago now. Like, no, we really got to go to this place for this reason. So I was really good at kind of like backing up and being persuasive, but I actually was horrible at sales in the beginning. And it's because I want everyone to like me. And so it was really hard for me to call people out on their shit, because I think that that's really what it takes to be good at sales, at least in our industry, is being willing to say to somebody like, listen, nothing's going to change unless you do something differently. And I'm seeing you stop yourself here. So it took a lot for me. And I'll tell you, Kamila, the reason I got good at sales was because I got so freaking frustrated sucking at it. I remember I had dinner with a friend of mine in San Francisco she was the top salesperson at a huge tech company. Like, I'm not going to say what it was, but you've all heard of it. And I had dinner with her, and she just started kind of like, it wasn't even exactly role playing with me, but she started asking me questions, and I was like, okay, like I get it. And I got that the pain I was in around it, that I had to show up differently. And so, I just really made it my goal to freaking help people, because, when you really believe in what you're selling, you want people to buy, not just because you're excited about the income. Like, of course we're excited about the income when somebody says yes, right? But it's because we really see what's possible for this person. And I really had to hook into that, because I think I was thinking too much about myself in the beginning. And most of us are. It's like, we're getting out of like a financial crunch or whatever. But what started to become really painful for me was not getting somebody to the other side. And that was killing me. Like, I would talk to people who I knew I could get them out of debt, or I knew that I could take them to 6 figures, but they were like so stuck in their own stuff. And I just didn't have the guts to call them out and to be really honest with them. And so kind of all those things combined are what really got me on this track of, okay, I really want to get good at this skill. And then as I started teaching it and seeing what my clients could create through just getting some sales training, like so many newbies are winging it, which is crazy. It totally doesn't work. And just seeing the results that they could create, I just became more and more and more obsessed with sales. And sales is such an entree to our own personal growth, because, we see how we get enrolled in other people's bullshit, or, we just see our own stuff come up. So it's just such an interesting, I don't know, skill set to have, because it requires so much of us to really be about, the stand that we're taking for the other person. So that's kind of how it all came together was like, I sucked at it. I was frustrated that I couldn't help people, because you really can't help people if you're not good at sales.
Right.
And then like, I just realized my mission is too big and I care too much to keep sucking at sales. So
no, I love
I
that.
had to get good. And I've done, hundreds of calls at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes time. Like, I think people beat themselves up when they're not closing people. And it's like, well, talk to 200 people and then complain about not closing. Like, you're going to like, something will shift.
In the beginning, it's always harder because you don't have that experience. And I love that you provided that shift, that perception shift of it's not necessarily sales, it's enrollment, and you're standing for your client and showing potential client, or, let's just be assumptive. It's a client.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then it's kind of like you're almost being selfish and not support, because you're not standing for them to support them in something that you can support with. So I think that's a really huge shift. So to kind of move along in terms of the hustle, because we're kind of talking about the hustle right now. So
yeah,
I'd love to know, like, as you were growing your business, because you've had your business for 4 years exactly now, which is amazing. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
What was the moment where you noticed that things were like, holy shit, things are actually really blowing up? Like, things are really working now. Can you pinpoint in a moment like that?
Yeah. Well, getting good at sales for sure. And selling out my first mastermind. I mean, that was such a huge confidence booster for me. And I worked so hard. Like, oh God, I wanted to give up for sure. I mean, I definitely had the crying in the bathroom tub moment, which I think most people, you're telling me that people who are tuning into your podcast have been in business. Like, you guys all have that moment of like crying on the floor or in the tub or like in the car or wherever, your garage, like wherever it happened. You guys know the breakdown I'm talking about. So it took going through all of that and not stopping before I reached my goal. And that was just such a huge boost for me. And I realized that I could have 6-figure income from a group. And that level of leverage, both time and financial, is so huge. And that's when I was like, oh, okay. And, that's what's allowed me to be able to double my revenue and like, serve more people, raise my rates, all of that. But that, I would say that was kind of the defining moment for me. And I'll tell you too, Kamila, like everyone has different things that motivate them, but I definitely get motivated by frustration. So what was going on for me was, so I was living in San Francisco. I mean, there's a ton of coaches there, just like there are here in San Diego. And I remember seeing somebody speak and I was like, God damn it, I'm better than him. Like, and it just frustrated me. Or that sounds really bad, but like, I just was like, if he can do it, why can't I? This is ridiculous. So it was just like, I'll never forget that, of the frustration I felt. One of the ways I've put this into words before is for not playing with the big kids. Because I always felt like I was supposed to play with the big kids and like be successful. Like, if these other people could do it, why not me? And so I really allow that frustration to fuel me. So rather than let it, I mean, it's not like it doesn't get me down for a period of time, right? Like whether that's an hour or 2 days or whatever it is, but like, it's so, I don't know, for me, that's motivating. Like, it puts fire under my butt.
I love that. And I can totally relate to having had almost the same exact in San Francisco. It was in San Diego at a conference. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, which is what prompted me to do my events, which is like, it's amazing. So I love that. So thanks for sharing. Now, I know that it's pretty amazing because you basically do, correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically do enrollment like for like twice a year?
Yeah. Once or twice a year.
Yeah. So that's amazing, right? So you do enrollment once a year or twice a year, and then you kind of just do other things in between and like go to Bali and hang out and things like that. Now, but I know that you still do, like, you do small launches and you do just kind of like little experiments and campaigns. So what would you say has been the most effective like marketing or business strategy that you've done in the last year or so?
Ooh, that's such a good question. So for me, one of the things that's worked really well has been speaking. So like live speaking in rooms. That's been really great just because the conversion is always higher when people have a chance to meet you. And I remember you shared this with my clients about, actually getting live with people is it just creates the deepest connection. So that's worked really well for me. One thing that worked really well this year that was new was launching my 6-week sales program. So I'd been teaching sales internally for a couple of years to my own clients, And then I realized, like, wait a second, I have all these people who follow me who I've never even offered this training to. So I'll tell you, on the back, like behind the scenes, it was somewhat of a haphazard launch. Like, I don't know if your business is like this, but I'll say in my business, a lot of things are like, okay, we need to do it like now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of forward planning. So we're still kind of like getting things together in that way. But what worked really well to enroll people in the mastermind and in Freedom Tribe was running the 6-week sales program first, because it just created a lot of trust and results. I mean, I had 2 women in particular who did over 45,000 in sales while they were in my sales program. And they really credited, the difference that my program had made. They'd both learned sales before, but, people were just getting, and they both joined my program, of course, like, at the VIP level, because like they got results. So, for me, what's worked really well is giving people something that they can get results from, because there's no way to better build credibility and trust than, having people try something out and get something that they wanted from it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that's a big shift that we've done in my company over the last year, probably or so, is creating, I mean, it's not even like a sales funnel, but it's not at the same time, because it's just like a thing that happens before a bigger launch that you're trying to do for like bigger enrollments, like for my mastermind as well, like doing very intentional enrollments for something else that gives people results. So I love that. And I think that overall generosity, it's definitely huge, and people need to see that, like, you're awesome, but also you know how to do your work, which this is a great way to show that. So I love that. Thanks for sharing. Now I want to kind of go more into the heart. So we started talking about about that actually in the beginning, but I want to go back to that. I was curious if you did you create your business to support the traveling you were already doing? Like, was that already a part of your life, or was that like the driver for creating a business that would then support you to, to travel? Because I know it's such a big part of who you are.
It's such a good question. So I would say it was more about lifestyle than travel at first. So to me, what that meant was being able to go ride, a 50-mile bike ride in the middle of the day that would take me 3 hours or 3.5 hours. Going to yoga whenever I feel like it, working from 2 to 6 p.m. if that's when I felt like working, which that was kind of my jam for a long time, just working 2 to 6 p.m. That was before I had this company. I definitely put more time in. But when I was a consultant, it was like afternoons. Yeah, great. So this is what's kind of funny. So I definitely traveled before, but I actually had a lot of anxiety with traveling. And so I had this really kind of life-changing trip to Nicaragua that happened literally right before I started this business. So I had rented out my place on Airbnb and I had to go somewhere for 2 weeks. And I just pulled up a map, like, where should I go? And I went to Nicaragua, and it was so healing. And so that happened right before I launched this company. And so really, the two have almost grown together. And that's actually why, I know we didn't know each other 4 years ago, but you wouldn't have seen, Adventurous Entrepreneur didn't exist when my company started. So it's actually, they've kind of grown together. And whatever I had to get through the healing around the anxiety with traveling, mostly that's complete. And, I just feel way different traveling now than I used to. But yeah, it's kind of as I've come into my own with that, and just in my personality in general, the brand has kind of grown right alongside with me.
I love
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it totally does. Now, another thing that's kind of coming up for me is I was wondering if, since you work with healers a lot and you work with coaches too, so it's people that are very heart-centered very often. So I was wondering if there's a specific, why did you actually pick that specific niche, if you want to call it a niche, or, whatever? Is there some kind of a significance?
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like for me, when I look at a coaching business, it's pretty easy for me to tell what's working and not working. So I just feel like in some ways it's just a part of my zone of genius, really. But I also knew, so before I had this company, I had an environmental consulting company, and I've, since I graduated college, everything I did was environmental. So I knew that for me, I wouldn't be satisfied and I wouldn't feel great about the money I was making if it didn't have some sort of positive impact. So I see my work as really creating this ripple effect. So when I teach somebody sales, I'm not just teaching them sales, they're actually able to go out and help more people and do whatever it is they do. So whether it's fitness or love, or it doesn't matter, business, I have clients who are business coaches too, that it's actually having that positive ripple effect. So I was a huge activist. So I know you probably don't know this about me, but I mean, I was like a big protester. I did all the activist stuff in San Francisco. I've been arrested, for doing activism. And that's been a big part of my life actually since I was a teenager. So I always knew that I had to do something that would make a difference.
Mm.
And this is my version of it right now. Who knows, it could totally evolve into something else in the future. I never thought I would leave the environmental world. So I can't say that I'll do this forever because I've already proven that I don't do things for it. So,
well, it's already been 4 years. So that's
I know. So yeah, so it just like, to me, I'm not that interested in like helping somebody blow up their e-commerce,
right.
whatever, selling t-shirts. Like,
right. Yeah,
it just doesn't turn me on.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And I love hearing about the environmental side of you. So I can totally see that, but I didn't know that. So I appreciate you telling me.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So I'm curious to know, like, what is your vision for the world? Like, I know that you're making a huge difference and you mentioned that already a little bit, but like 5, 10 years down the line, like what would you love to see in the world?
Yeah. That's such a good question. I mean, no pressure, right? What's my vision for the world?
Well, I figured since you're already talking about environmentalism,
Yeah.
is that the phrase for it?
Yeah. Environmentalism.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if I think about it from kind of the human perspective, it's people that are healed, because walking the personal growth path is the same as walking the entrepreneurial path. So, any of you who've been at this for any period of time, that in order for us to keep growing in our businesses and get to the next level, we always have to meet where we're at on the personal growth path. So when I think about that vision, I mean, a lot of it really is, when you first asked me, the first phrase that came to mind for me was personal power. I'm becoming really obsessed with personal power and teaching personal power. And I don't mean power from like be really loud and big and roar and all of that. But it's like, we are all playing so freaking small. And I don't just mean entrepreneurs, I mean humans. And I am just so excited about the idea of people really connecting in with their purpose, whether that's being a mom or owning an empire. To me, it's like, how can you live your purpose full out and constantly push ourselves to get to the next level and really give ourselves permission to be expressed and live a legacy and have an impact. So, that's definitely a part of my vision. And I love your curiosity around the environmental stuff. I mean, I think that too, as we grow and as we, grow and heal ourselves as people, I think naturally we actually care more about things like the environment. And it's funny, you haven't picked up on it yet, but the longer you hang out with me, you're going to see it, because I freak out when people throw stuff in the trash that's recyclable. And like, I just go nuts about stuff like that. And even at my retreats, like in the contract, it says they can't bring any disposable anything in the room. So we try to be really tight about that in my company.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But it's like, how can I, the bigger vision is healed people that are actually making a difference in whatever way they want to. I mean, we're so blessed that we get to do what we do. And there are people who, like, sometimes I see the jobs that people have. Like, there was something that happened in the airport on the way home from Bali. I honestly don't even know where I was at that point. I might've been in Thailand. I had so many layovers, but there was a woman who was in the bathroom. She was the bathroom attendant, and she was rolling toilet paper from one roll onto the next. Like, it was very weird. She was just rolling the two. I don't know what she was doing, maybe making a bigger roll from two smaller rolls. I don't know what she was doing, but I had this moment that really hit me. And I was like, holy shit. I am so blessed that it is not my job to roll toilet paper from one roll to the next. And I have no answer for how we all get to have meaningful work, because there's things that need to be done that are that. And maybe to her, that's her meaning, is just being there to support the people who she comes in contact with every day. I don't know. But I think it can be easy sometimes to forget that perspective. We are not the ones, taking money at the toll booth. We are not the ones rolling toilet paper, cleaning up after a hotel room. Like we're just so blessed. So I think that I just ended up on some crazy tangent.
I love that. I think that's so powerful because yeah, you're right. Like it's so easy for us to just be like, oh, I'm only making $20,000 this month or 30 or 50,000. Oh no, why am I not at 100K per month yet? Well, I don't know. Maybe let's be grateful for what's going on and then continue moving forward in a positive way versus like the other. So I love that. I think that's amazing. So do you know Kathleen Ventura?
No, I don't.
I'm going to have to connect you with her because she's all about
cool.
Going beyond business and like the activism kind of side. And it's like environmental.
I love that.
She's
love
super cool.
that.
Yeah, we'll make sure to have her in the show sometime.
Yes.
In the future too.
And that's a part of me that's not expressed right now. And this was a fear of mine when I started this business, was how do I include the environmentalism? So, even like the gifts I give my clients, I gave them these reusable cups, like stainless steel cups at the last retreat. And like I said, we have all the rules around no disposable anything, like bring a plastic water bottle in and I will freaking lose my shit. But yeah, like I'm still looking for ways to integrate that. So that might look like, a retreat where we go to a service project. I don't know, but I do know that it's missing right now. And now that my business is stable and I'm, financially stable, now it's like, okay, I really need to think about what the impact is beyond just what my clients are experiencing, but like, what is the bigger global impact? And I think it's a good question for all of us to ask, really, because we are so blessed for the success that we do have. And, like entrepreneurs, we have so much power. And I feel like we're this like secret society of like, do you feel like that ever? Like,
right. Yeah.
We have our own so much available.
Also, it's like we have our own economy. We are doing whatever we want, and like it works, and we're not in a mercy of like everything else. And I think that's super powerful for anybody. So I love that. Now, as we're kind of going towards the end, you have been super amazing, of course.
Oh, thank you, Kamila.
I know that you have something that you're creating for our listeners.
Yes.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, of course. Okay. So I was sharing earlier about sales and how I'm so obsessed with sales. And I think the biggest challenge that entrepreneurs have in sales is sometimes just not having a plan and not having a structure. So there's something that I created that's been having amazing results, which is a script. So I know there's a lot of different sales methodologies out there, and I have found that sometimes all people want is to know exactly what the F to actually say when you get on the phone. So I have a script that I'm going to give to everybody, and it literally starts from hello all the way to like, what's your credit card? So it's a word for word script. Obviously you want to, be natural with it and not be like, hello, blah, 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 because that's going to be really weird. But like, take it, use it, follow the flow in the order because it's actually strategic. And we created a special page for your audience, Kamila. So people can just go to emilyutter.com/Kamila and you can download my free sales script right there.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes as well, so you guys can grab that from the show notes too. So lastly, if there's any like social media links or like your website or whatever you want to share, how can people find you outside of grabbing this fabulous resource?
Yeah. So my website is just emilyutter.com. It's UTTER. People sometimes think it's like a cow. And even though I'm from Vermont, it's not. It's emilyutter.com. And then on Facebook, you can also find my business page. And it's so funny. I don't even know what to tell them. But if you search Emily Utter, you should find my business page. I'm not huge on social media. I'm an adventurous entrepreneur on Instagram, but I've been kind of inconsistent about that. So it's, at some point, I'm sure that I will have that stuff dialed in, but it just hasn't been my focus. But I'd love to see you guys on Facebook. That'd be really fun.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys can find that. We also have the links in the show notes. And then lastly, do you have any parting tips or, any advice for our amazing entrepreneurs that are listening that are interested in creating more freedom in their business and potentially having that include more travel?
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, thank you. Well, I really want to thank you, Kamila. This has been so fun. I love every time we get to jam on business. And yeah, in terms of thinking about building your business so that you can travel, you really want to plan your business model around that. So I always say, don't coach your clients 4 times a month. Really build out your schedule in such a way and your programs in such a way that you have that spaciousness. And notice if you have fear that they're not going to want to work with you because of that, because I can tell you it's not true. And like I said, my clients were celebrating my month in Bali. So the more that you can be aligned with what you want to create and what you want in your lifestyle, you're going to attract people who are totally down with that, who want that, and they want to see you model that it's possible. So I would say start with that from the beginning, because once you get off on, once the train is moving, it's kind of hard to change directions. But if you can really build your business out with that in mind, then it's like, you can only grow from there in the way that you want to grow.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here, Emily. It was super fun. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, girl. It's really fun.